Michael have been dating for over a year now. If he were to ask to marry her, would you approve?
I would have to say so far, no, oh man.
So it looks like Michael B. Jordan might still be holding on to some feelings about how things ended with Marjorie Harvey, because now he's out here dropping some seriously spicy details about the Harvey family. He's pointing fingers at Marjorie, claiming she's been pulling strings behind the scenes and influencing everyone in the circle. And the wild part? He's not just talking, he's coming with receipts, which makes this whole situation even more intense. The Harvey family situation already seemed shaky before, but now it's getting even messier. Michael stepping in and speaking on what's really going on has people raising eyebrows, especially with claims that Marjorie is the one calling all the shots in that household. According to what's being said, she's not just guiding things, she's running the whole show, and that includes having major influence over Steve, too. Honestly, some people are not even shocked by that. Just to rewind a bit, Michael B. Jordan and Marjorie Harvey were once that couple everyone was watching, but things ended last year. Neither of them really gave a full public explanation, but the tension was obvious. Subtle online posts and quiet jabs started popping up, making it clear that the breakup wasn't as smooth as it looked. Marjorie even shared a post that said, "Dump him," while Michael later threw some noticeable shade during his Saturday Night Live appearance. Then things escalated when Lori's parents got involved in the situation. Steve posted, "Love yourself, my G," which many people took as a direct message, and Marjorie added her own layer by sharing a video that seemed to throw even more shade into the mix. That's when people really started paying attention because it felt like this breakup was turning into a full family situation. There were also quiet whispers going around that Michael didn't feel completely comfortable in the relationship, and a lot of that allegedly had to do with Marjorie's strong presence. Some claimed she had influence not just over Marjorie, but over the entire family dynamic, which may have created tension behind the scenes. It even sparked talk that Steve's energy toward Michael shifted because of that influence. What makes this even more surprising is that Steve didn't always seem against Michael. In fact, before the relationship, he actually spoke highly of him in interviews and even joked that he tried to find something to dislike about him but couldn't. That says a lot, especially since he had also met Michael's parents, which suggests things were once very respectful and positive. Based on that, it would seem natural for Steve to support the relationship, especially considering how much he appeared to respect Michael. But once Michael and Marjorie became official, Steve's reactions started to feel a bit off. During an appearance on The Ellen Show, when shown a photo of Marjorie sitting on Michael's lap, Steve openly showed discomfort, which caught a lot of people off guard, and it didn't stop there. When asked about the possibility of Michael and Marjorie getting married, Steve's reaction came across as awkward and hesitant, which only added more questions to the situation. It stood out even more because Marjorie had previously been connected to other high-profile figures, and yet this particular relationship seemed to get a very different response. That contrast is what really had people talking, because the energy just didn't seem consistent. Observers started wondering why this relationship was getting such a unique reaction compared to others, and whether there was more going on behind closed doors than anyone originally thought. So, apparently, it's not just about Marjorie. Steve clearly had an issue with Michael B. Jordan specifically, which is wild when you really think about it, because out of everyone she's been linked to, Michael seemed like one of the most solid choices, and even Steve himself admitted he liked him at first. So, what changed? Because honestly, the math is not adding up at all. A lot of people are side-eyeing the situation and wondering if Marjorie had something to do with that sudden shift, especially since she didn't seem to hold back when it came to throwing subtle shade at Michael after the breakup. After things ended, it became pretty obvious that Marjorie might have been way more involved than people expected. Her close friend Lisa Ray even spoke about the situation on the podcast, Cocktails with Queens, And let's just say, there was no holding back. The comments aimed at Michael definitely raised eyebrows, and it had people questioning why someone outside the relationship felt so comfortable speaking on it so publicly. Now, sure, it's normal for Lori to vent to her mom. That part makes sense. But the real question is, why was Marjorie discussing her daughter's private business in a way that made it public conversation? That's where things start to feel off. And for her friend to also speak on it openly, while Lori herself stayed mostly silent, just made the whole situation look even messier. It comes across as crossing a line, and people are definitely noticing that pattern. And if you look at Marjorie's history, some people feel like this controlling image didn't just come out of nowhere. She's had a past that's been described as complicated, with stories that still get brought up from time to time. There have been mentions of serious legal situations connected to people she was involved with, and while nothing was proven against her, the rumors alone have kept people talking for years. What's even more interesting is that Steve is actually her third husband. Even though they officially got together in 2005, their story goes all the way back to 1987. Steve was immediately interested, but at the time, Marjorie wasn't feeling it because he didn't have the financial stability she was looking for. She wanted someone already established, and Steve just wasn't there yet. So, she moved on and ended up marrying other people before eventually reconnecting with him years later. Now, here's where the story takes a turn that had people talking. Marjorie's first and second husbands were reportedly related, which definitely raised some eyebrows. It's one of those details that made people look twice and wonder what was really going on behind the scenes. Her first husband, Jim Townsend, was reportedly involved in serious illegal activity and ended up facing major federal charges in the early 90s. At the time, authorities were looking closely at the situation overall, and while Marjorie denied any involvement, there were still suspicions surrounding the environment she was in. Ultimately, Jim took responsibility for his actions and received a life sentence. Years later, while he was still serving time, Marjorie moved on and eventually divorced him. Not long after, she entered another relationship, this time with Donald Woods, who was also reportedly connected to similar illegal activity. That pattern raised even more questions for people watching from the outside, especially considering the serious legal consequences tied to those situations. And just like before, that relationship also ended after legal trouble surfaced. Once again, there were suspicions in the background, though nothing was formally proven against her. Still, the repeated connections to these situations have continued to fuel conversations, with many people wondering how much influence and control she really has in the environments she's part of. And honestly, you can see why people would raise an eyebrow at all of this. If someone was investigated because of one relationship tied to illegal activity and then quickly ended up in another similar situation, of course people are going to question it. That kind of pattern doesn't just go unnoticed. Still, Marjorie managed to walk away from both situations without facing charges, which only added to the mystery surrounding her story. A lot of people feel like her ability to navigate those situations doesn't get talked about enough. Escaping serious legal scrutiny more than once is no small thing. And then, later, building a life with someone as successful as Steve Harvey makes the whole situation even more surprising. Not only that, but Steve fully embraced her children, even going as far as adopting them and giving them his last name, which completely reshaped their public identity. At the same time, some observers have pointed out how much attention Lori seems to get compared to Steve's biological children. The way he publicly supports and uplifts her often stands out, and it has sparked conversations about whether there's an imbalance in how the family dynamic plays out. From the outside, it can definitely look like Lori is front and center in a way that others aren't. There have also been reports suggesting that not everything is perfectly smooth within the blended family. According to insiders, while Steve cares deeply for all the kids, there have been moments of tension behind the scenes. Some of that is said to come from Lori's high visibility and the spotlight that follows her relationships, which naturally draws more public attention than the others receive. Sources have even claimed that Michael B. Jordan saw some of this firsthand and wasn't shocked by the internal friction. In fact, there are whispers that he feels relieved to have stepped away from the situation altogether, believing that certain dynamics within the family made things more complicated than they needed to be. Looking at everything, some people think the relationship faced pressure, not just from within, but from the family environment surrounding it. There's a strong perception that Marjorie plays a major role in shaping decisions, and that influence may have impacted how things unfolded between Michael and Lori. Whether that's fully accurate or not, it's definitely a big part of why this story keeps people talking. And that's really where people start connecting all the dots, because when you look at the bigger picture, it doesn't just feel like a simple breakup anymore. It starts to look like there were layers of pressure coming from all sides, especially from the family dynamic that surrounded the relationship. And when one person is believed to have that much influence, it can change everything behind the scenes. A lot of the conversation now is centered around control and perception. People are questioning whether Lori was fully making her own decisions, or if there were outside voices guiding how things played out. Because when you see how quickly the narrative shifted after the breakup, it makes you wonder who was really steering the story that the public ended up seeing. And let's not ignore how Michael moved after everything went down. He didn't go on a full press run or start oversharing, but the subtle comments, the timing, and the energy he gave off told enough. It felt calculated, like someone who chose to step back but still had something to say without saying too much. That kind of silence can speak loud if you're paying attention. Meanwhile, Lori kept things polished and controlled on her end, which only added to the contrast. No direct responses, no drawn-out drama, just carefully chosen moments and posts. That difference in how they handled things is exactly why people keep revisiting this situation, trying to figure out what really happened behind closed doors. And now the conversation is getting even louder because people aren't just looking at the breakup anymore. They're questioning the entire image that's been presented to the public this whole time. When everything looks perfect on the surface, but messy details keep slipping out, it makes people wonder what's actually real and what's carefully managed behind the scenes. Some are even pointing out how strategic everything feels, especially when it comes to timing and public appearances. From relationships to interviews to social media moments, it all seems very calculated, like every move is part of a bigger plan. And when that idea starts to stick, it changes how people interpret everything connected to the family. Then there's the idea that Michael may have seen more than he ever said out loud, because the way he quietly stepped back without trying to control the narrative too much gives the impression that he understood the situation for what it was and chose peace over chaos. Not everyone walks away like that unless they've experienced something that made them rethink everything. At the same time, the spotlight on Lori hasn't slowed down at all. If anything, it's only gotten brighter, and that keeps the attention exactly where it's always been. But with all this talk building up, people are starting to look beyond the surface and ask deeper questions about influence, control, and what really goes on when the cameras aren't rolling. So at the end of the day, this whole situation feels way deeper than just a breakup. It's not just about Michael and Lori. It's about the family dynamics, the influence behind the scenes, and the way everything played out once things fell apart. And the more people look into it, the more questions start popping up. Was this relationship always set up to fail? Or did things spiral because of outside pressure that couldn't be controlled? That's what has everyone talking right now, because the story just doesn't feel as simple as it was first presented. One thing is clear, though. Michael walked away, Lori kept it moving, and the Harvey family is still right in the spotlight with all eyes on them. And with all these details continuing to surface, don't be surprised if even more comes out sooner than expected. Now, I need to hear what you think about all this. Was this just a messy breakup, or is there something bigger going on behind the scenes? Drop your thoughts below.